Hi, bonsoir. So thank you for joining me today. I'm going to start some new sessions of live Q&A on freelancing in France on YouTube and Instagram. So I'm going to have a go and see whether it's going on YouTube. I think it might be tricky for today. Let me just have a quick look to see whether it's working. So let's see for the live. So it's okay. You can see me on YouTube. So let's check Instagram. I'll have a go, and if it doesn't work, then I will just leave it as is for today. So the idea about this live session is that once a week on a Wednesday at 7 p.m. French time, it's 1 p.m. in New York, 10 a.m. In Los Angeles, I'm going to do a half an hour live Q&A answering anything about freelancing in France. So whether you are currently living in your home country and you want to move to France and you think about freelancing in 3 to 18 months, or whether you are already in France and you think about creating your business, freelancing, you are living in France already, or whether you already have a French business and you have some questions about managing that business or developing this business, you can just turn up on the day on Wednesday at 7 p.m. and ask me your questions. So because today is the first live, what I will be doing is I'm going to be taking a few questions that I have received this week on YouTube. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Valerie Aston. I'm a French business advisor and the creator of Start Business in France, where I help expatriates prepare, create, and manage their French business. So let me just have a quick look on Instagram. I don't think the live is working. So in that case, that's okay. I might cheat and do a live from my phone. Let me see. There we go. Sorry about that. So just cheating by doing a live. Hi. So I'm just doing a live on Instagram. So the live Q&As have moved from the Friday lunchtime to the Wednesday at 7 p.m. And today I'm going to look at you sideways on Facebook because I can't manage the tech restream for Facebook, but not for Instagram. So today, because it's new, I'm taking a few questions that I have received from people on YouTube. And if you're watching live, you can ask me some questions in the chat, and I will take them and answer them as we go. So one of the first questions which I have received, which is obviously from YouTube, I'm going to answer questions that I do receive through YouTube. One of the questions I receive is, how do I declare my income from generated from YouTube? So if you are living in France and you are a permanent resident in France and you're having a dab at YouTube and you're actually getting some income, so well done to you if you've got the 1,000 followers or 400 subscribers or the opposite. But if you're managing to generate an income from YouTube, this is seen as a business income. So basically in France, whenever we talk about what we call collaborative income, so collaborative income is, for instance, you sell some clothes on Vinted, you sell some stuff on Le Bon Coin, you get some money from YouTube through adverts, and you're reaching 3,000 euros, this becomes a professional activity. This needs to be declared as a business. And my advice for you, if you're doing this, would be basically to declare this as a micro entrepreneur, because it's the most flexible French business. You declare your activity online and you can decide to pay on a monthly or quarterly basis based on what you have received. And if what you're selling on YouTube is more like advertising space, it will be seen as advertising. So if you get to that stage where you're making money on YouTube and you're actually doing more than just advertising, ask yourself which are the other services that you want to add. So I don't know, you might be selling some merchandise, or you might also be doing some coaching, or you might doing some online. You might also doing some online courses. So think about broader term. What would you add to this business when you start to generate some income? And then register the activity. If you need some help with this, just get in touch with me, and I will help you register the business. But basically think in broader terms. So for instance on Instagram, I can see some people having a great, they're really picking up. The channel is the channel is growing quickly. So they think, okay, what can I sell through this account? What are the different services that we might be selling in the future? And that's what I tend to recommend to people, is to really broaden your sources of income and include it in the business to start with. So that's one of the first questions I would say that I would wanted to answer, because we are live on YouTube. If you're making some video on YouTube, you have to declare it. And sometimes, so for instance, it's picking up faster than you expected. Sometimes you might realize, oops, I just didn't realize I had to declare it. In France, I've actually been making some money for the last 6 months. Then we want to clarify it with the French tax office. So we register the business, and then we'll try to backdate it with URSSAF. People, you're going to be paying social charges too. So it's all neat and tidy. And we can backdate it usually within the same calendar year, but it's going to be more tricky if you want to backdate to 2023. In that case, you really want to speak to the accountant to fix it. Another question that I received on YouTube was from Emmanuel. So Emmanuel says, I have a student visa. Must I graduate to do this, or can I change my study permit to freelance in France, since some clients are willing to hire me as a freelancer? So if you are studying in France and you're a European student, then you can just create your business at any time. Hi, Heaven Horse officials. Sorry, I'm looking sideways on Instagram today because I couldn't do the live restream on both. If you have some questions, don't hesitate to ask. I will check them on. So if you're a student and you're a European student in France, then you can create a business and you can create a micro-entrepreneur. Now, if you're a non-European citizen and you're on a student visa, normally you need to have graduated in order to register a business. And usually what people would do is they would graduate, then they would ask to switch to what we call the RECE, R-E-C-E visa, which is for... which is for recherche d'emploi, création d'entreprise. So this one basically allows you, after you graduated for 1 year, to either look for a job or to freelance. In that case, the freelancing would have to be through a micro-entrepreneur. But that's a nice step to say, I'm studying, I'm looking for a job for freelancing, and then after 1 year, you would switch to a visa profession libérale. So if in the meantime you are offered some missions, there's several things you could look into. You could say, okay, can I do it as a trainee? Because if you're in one of the business schools or universities, some companies are quite likely to want to hire you as a stagiaire. So it's called stagiaire in French. So see whether this kind of work could be done through that. As a trainee, they would hire you for 1 to 3 months to do the work, a stagiaire. If you have a French social security number and that's a one-off mission, maybe you could also look into portage salarial, which is when you have an umbrella company carrying the work, and your status within the status with portage salarial is basically it's similar to a work contract, but just for one particular mission. So from the French point of view, it's as if you had a short-term contract to work with a company. So it could be an option. And I would look at Jump, G-U-M-P, which does some portage salarial. I've asked them to clarify this for me, but I don't have the answer yet. So if you have some question, don't hesitate to ask. Just checking quickly there, but don't hesitate to ask your question, and I will take them. Another question I received today was, so this one was, how do I get a SIRET number? And because basically it was someone who wanted to work as a Uber or a Deliveroo driver, and basically they're asking him for a SIRET number. So basically when you're being asked to be giving a SIRET number, it just basically means that you need to go and register a business. So in this case, the case of this person, they would go and register a business as a micro-entrepreneur, which would be the easiest one, and then they would go back to Uber or Deliveroo and give the SIRET number to confirm they're fully official. In that particular situation, I didn't have the full details, but what is tricky, even if you're an Uber or Deliveroo driver, you want to have the right passport or the right visa. If you're in France and you're a non-European citizen, you need a business visa, you need visa talent or vie privée famille in order to create a business. And you also need to have an address for the business. So if you don't have an address that you can use, you need to use a PO box, which is called Adresse de domiciliation. So PO box, domiciliation address. So that was for the delivery driver. Basically, whenever somebody says, I need a SIRET number or I need a KBIS, what they want is they want you to go and register a business. It's a full business registration with INPI, which is the central hub for all businesses registration and updates in France. So for instance, let's say you have your business and you want to add extra activities, you would go back to INPI and update your record. So the next question I had was from Kelechi, and Kelechi was asking, can I use a macro entrepreneur for drop shipping? So basically, drop shipping is when you're going to be selling some items or some goods on the platform like Amazon, but you do the marketing, you do the promotion, you do the sales, but all the actually shipping of the products or making the products is done by somebody else. And Amazon has a great service for this. So yes, you can do that as a macro entrepreneur. The only downside with a macro entrepreneur is that your social charges, the taxes that you're going to be paying to URSSAF, are based on your sales and not on your profit. And to me, the big issue with dropshipping is that usually, not the big issue with dropshipping, but the issue with dropshipping with a macro entrepreneur is that normally, when you do dropshipping, your margin may not be that high. So you have the total, you have the total sales minus the cost, and you pay the commission. Normally, with a macro entrepreneur, you're paying your taxes on what you've cashed in. So if you're cashing in on your account the whole amount, for instance, let's say I sell some coffee makers at 30 euros, and then I have somebody shipping it, making it with my logo and so on, it cost me 25 euros. If I cash in 30 euros with the macro entrepreneur, I'm taxed on 30 euros. So 30 euros times 12.3%, that's what I'm taxed on. I'm not taxed on the 30 minus 25. I'm not taxed on the profit. So that's one of the things to clarify, is basically micro entrepreneur isn't likely to be a good fit because you're taxed on sales and not on profit. And if you say, yes, but I'm paid on commission, it's based on what you cash in. So that's what you have to look into. The next question was from Varol. So Varol, I think, is based in Turkey, and she's a freelance designer. So she says, as a freelance designer, if my clients are in my home country and my income's from them, do I still have the chance to live in France and work remotely for those clients and pay taxes in France? So basically, Varol lives in Turkey, and she wants to move to France. I think she's doing design or 3D design, and she was freelance. She is currently freelancing in her own country, but her dream is to come to France and freelance. So she is going to be applying for a visa profession libérale. So the visa profession libérale is the visa that allows you to come to France and to work with your business. Hi, Charlotte Maritime, nice to see you. If you have some questions, don't hesitate, and I will take them. If you type them in the chat, I will take them on. Hi, Shiva Telebin. I'm not very good at saying the names. Nice to see you. If you have some questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I will answer them. Sorry, I'm looking sideways because I'm also on Restream for YouTube, and because I'm not techie, I didn't manage to log in the two together, so I'm looking on both screens. So basically, I was talking about the question from Varol, who lives in Turkey, wants to come to France with a visa profession libérale. So to me, she's in a great position because basically she has been freelancing in her own country, and she's applying for the easiest one, which would be visa profession libérale. It's issued for 1 year. In her case, I would do a strong business plan where she's going to talk about a project to move to France and do the same activity, but as a micro entrepreneur. And when she comes over, she's going to bring over her current customers. That's actually a big plus, because basically what she's saying is, yes, I freelance in my country and it worked. I did manage to do so much turnover per year. When I'm going to be moving over to France, I will basically close down the structure in Turkey and restart in France as a micro entrepreneur. And her business plan, she's going to give the full description about her activities, how she's going to target new customers or services or competitors or strategy. And if she has some of those customers who want to keep working with her, then she wants to have letters of recommendations or contracts, which will really come to strengthen the project to show, okay, that looks like a viable project, because not only has she worked as a freelancer before, but she also has some customers who can follow her when she's in France. And basically, once you have a business in France, it doesn't really matter where your customers are based. You could be living in France with a French business and have all your customers in Australia or in the US or in Switzerland. We don't really care. It's just that when we apply for a visa, usually for the purpose of the visa, we also put a spin as to what would you do in order to have local customers in France? Because we tend to say that when you apply for a visa, you have that vision of what is your vision your life in France. What do you want to do? What do you want to bring to the country? We want to see that you're going to be bringing something to the country. So you would also put a spin on, for instance, in Val's case, she might say, so she's coming over and she will work with some of the customers. She will keep developing those relationships with her customers in Turkey, because that generates for her regular income. And then she might also target French companies in the French sector for 3D design. And she might mention a few conferences that she'll be going to in France, or a few companies or events where she'll go a network to go and find local customers, which will eventually enable her to also have some customers in France. And I think when you are in some of those design profession, whether you're in design, programming, security, I mean, a lot of companies in France, or not a lot of companies, but a lot of events, they will be having people working in English, or they used to work abroad, so it would be a plus for her to mention that strategy. Hi, Yoga with Manouk, nice to see you. If you have some questions, don't hesitate. So I like the names, because with some of the names, I can guess some of the questions we might have, or it tells you a few ideas of the kind of activities that we have in France. And for Charente-Maritime Gîtes, I can see on Instagram, for Gîtes in France, it's going to be a big year, because basically the law is changing slightly. The French government said that he wanted to push professionals, or people, a lot of people actually renting properties on Airbnb or as a secondary source of income, and the government wants to push people to go towards more of a professional setup and to pay slightly more taxes, because for now there's too many tax exemptions. So for those of you who have a gîte, we're kind of waiting for now, because basically what the government was saying is that for now, if you have a gîte, for instance, as a micro entrepreneur, your total yearly turnover is about 186,000 euros, which normally is for buy to resell. So if I buy and sell coffee machines and so on, that's buy to resell, that's 186,000. But for gîte, basically what the government was saying is, well, that's too high. You're not actually making buying to resell things. It's more of a service. Therefore, they wanted the gîte owners as micro entrepreneur to go down to the lower threshold of 77,000 euros as a service provider. So that was the aim, except that when they voted the new law in December at the Parliament, there was a big mistake in the text of law. And instead of saying 77,000 euros, they've mentioned 15,000 euros. So it was a big mess up in January 1st or 2nd of Jan. Everybody confirmed that it was a mistake, that they got that wrong, that don't use this as a reference. It will be fixed. It's just for now, it hasn't been fixed. The new law hasn't been passed. So in theory, for gîte owners working under the micro-entrepreneur scheme, eventually it should be capped at 77,000 euros, but it hasn't been voted. So I would say for now, until we have that new law, still the references from last year, but things are going to change. So it's one of the topics. If you're planning to rent a property as a professional, like a micro entrepreneur, or as a non-professional, you want to keep an eye on those laws as and when they come out. I will write about them in my newsletter. I will cover it on YouTube. So just make sure you subscribe to the channel. So whenever there's update on this, I will record a particular video explaining what the new law is. And when we do the lives, I will also update you. So for now, I know it sounds pretty scary, but we don't want to panic. We want to wait until the law is passed. And so far, because the government has just been busy with farmers and so on, it's not on the priority list. I wouldn't be surprised if the new law wasn't voted until July or August. So let's just wait and see what happens. So if you have some questions, don't hesitate. I'm just going to check the chat to see how it's going. And basically, the live chat is just half an hour. So I take questions, I cover some of the topics, and after half an hour, I will stop and prepare dinner. Prepare dinner because it's dinner time in France. Another questions that I had, so let me see. Okay, so I had another one, which was from Amer on YouTube, and Amer was saying, can I open an auto-entrepreneur with the description Petits travaux de bricolage if I have just experience in my country, but I don't have the certificate? Can I open it? Okay, so that's a few interesting things. Whenever you hear auto-entrepreneur, auto-entrepreneur and micro-entrepreneur are the same things. And if you look at my channel, I have a half-an-hour video explaining, giving you a full overview of the micro-entrepreneur to explain to you how it works, and that's the simplest French business that you can start with. So Amer wants to open a micro-entrepreneur, and for what he calls petits travaux de bricolage. So I can see he's done some research here, because basically petits travaux de bricolage is when you do some DIY, some small jobs of DIY. And in France, the regulation is pretty strict. All manual activities are regulated. So whether you want to be a builder, a carpenter, a roofer, a plumber, a tiler, all of those are regulated. And normally when you go and register your business, or if you apply for a business visa, you will have to prove your qualification, which is either a diploma, so for instance, a City of Guild in the US, in the UK as a carpenter or as a tiler, or 3 years of experience. And when we talk about 3 years of experience, in that case, you will need to provide proof of you, for instance, having been an employee for 3 years, and that's 36 months, that's not below. If you're on 31, they will say no, so it's 36, 3 full years. Or if you've been self-employed. So if you've been self-employed in your own country, you were a plumber, and you have the loss and profit accounts for this, you have an attestation from your business registration, that would work. In that case, you can register for the activity. But if you're not qualified, which seems to be the case for Amer, it means that basically you can't be a builder, you can't be a roofer, you can't be a carpenter, you can't be a tiler. So it just leaves you the small odd jobs, and that's what we call petits travaux de bricolage. And usually by law, it's about 2 hours work, and we're talking more about, for instance, you need someone to come to your house to put a cupboard together. There's a door that doesn't quite close properly. You need to replace a few on and off switch for the lights and so on. So it'd be small jobs like this that you could do as a petit travaux de bricolage. And when you search for that online, they also list the things that you can do, but they are small jobs. You can't do petit travaux de bricolage and then go and repaint somebody else's house or do all the plastering. That wouldn't be allowed. And just know that when you go and register for this type of activity, you are relating to what we call chambre de métier, which is the body for manual activities. And they really check your description and they check your qualification. So if you have something which is too broad in the description, they would write back to say, what exactly do you mean? So they can clarify what you want to do. So if you say petit travaux de bricolage, and when they ask you to clarify and you talk about tiling and fitting foam and fitting lighting, which is electrician, they would say no. So you have to be very careful. So yes, Amer can register as a micro-entrepreneur for petit travaux de bricolage. He just has to double check the small jobs that you can do. And for an activity like this, for instance, for Amer, what is also feasible when you want to do small jobs, but it's irregular, is to use the CESU. In French, we have CESU, which is CESU, and it's when you go and do some work at somebody's house. And the advantage of this is that the person who's hiring you, is like as if it was a short-term contract. The person who hires you benefits from a tax credit on what she's spending with them. So that's a good thing. For instance, for Amer, it would be a way as well to do some bigger missions. So that's the questions that I had. I'm just having a look at what else there is. Blah, blah, blah. So I had a question from Chris. So Chris, we spoke since, so this one was by email, but we spoke since. Chris was saying, I'm buying a small house in Ariège. I live in the US and wish to rent it via AirBnB. I'm not in it to make money because the place where I want to live is not as popular as Paris. How should I set this activity up, or can I do it? Can I actually do it? So in Chris's situation, he lives in the US, but he doesn't plan at all to come and live in France. So for his, he needs to declare the activity of the holiday rental, and he will pay taxes in France on the holiday rental, but this is not a business because he's remaining as a non-resident. So the key thing here, Chris is a non-French resident because he doesn't plan to come to France yet and live. So all he needs to do is basically register the holiday rental, declare it officially. And there's two things that you will need to do. So the first thing is to check with the mairie that you are allowed to rent the property as holiday rental. And you have to do a declaration, which is called déclaration meublé de tourisme. This one is just a pure admin task. You're asking the mairie, okay, can you confirm that I'm allowed to rent my property as a holiday rental? Because in some areas, the housing market is so tight that sometimes don't want to allow more people to rent their properties as holiday rentals. So this one is pure administrative because you're filling a form and give it to the mairie. They say, yes, put a stamp on it, but that doesn't mean that you've registered your holiday rental. That's where people get it wrong, is they think that's done. And basically there was a pure administrative steps to inform the mairie that there's a holiday rental on the village. And also they use it for the board of tourism when they do advertising for properties, they include it in there. So that's step one. And usually for most towns now you can do it online when you can do the déclaration de meublé de tourisme online. And then the second step is actually to go and register the activity with INPI, so procedure INPI, which is a central hub for registering any kind of business. And here, basically for Chris, he would declare it as a non-professional activity. So he would say, he would register, and we call it LMNP, loueur, meublé, non professionnel, LMNP. That just means I'm declaring a holiday rental, but that's not my main activity. This is a side income. So he would declare it like this through INPI, and we would really emphasize on the fact that it's a side activity than the main activity. And once he's done this, he would just need his visa, his passport for this, and he will get the official business number, the business ID number, the SIRET number that we'll then give back to Airbnb and those platforms. And this process is very different from someone, for instance, Chris said to me, well, actually, I might, hopefully, if it goes well, in a couple of years' time, I probably will move to France and create a business. At that stage, because he's based in the US, he will ask for a visa profession libérale, which will then allow him to create a business, and he might register it, for instance, as a micro-entrepreneur. So when he's done all this, basically we will close down the non-professional activity and restart it as a full business. So Michelle, I can see you asking to join the live call, but I'm also on YouTube at the same time. So maybe if you can type your question, and I will answer your question as I can see it. So hi, Savio. So yeah, Michelle, if you don't mind typing your question, I will take it. So that's the key thing. It's basically there's a big difference in terms of holiday rental, whether you are living abroad, but then just remember if you're living abroad, and I mean abroad outside of France, it means that you need to declare that rental income in France, and you pay some taxes on that in France and not in your home country. And it's completely different if you actually declare it as a business in France, and in that case, that's your main activity, so you will pay some social charges and later on some income tax. Another thing that I wanted to mention to you, so as we're talking about businesses registration, my key advice for today, because I can see we're almost at the end of the half an hour, my key advice is whenever you are, don't rush into creating your business, because I've had a couple of calls this week where things were a bit muddled up because people rushing into declaring activities, ticked random boxes, or what they thought meant something which actually meant something else. And then at the end, we just end up with something very messy. So you want to clarify with me or with an accountant the different activities that you want to register. And just know that in France, the key thing that you have to remember is that in my channel, we talk about creating businesses, which is the main thing. But there's also, when you have a holiday rental, that's separate. It's not the same registration. It's not this, we're not talking about the same business types. It's not the same options. So you don't want to mix the two. It's two different registrations. And also if you're an artist, because I can see more artists as well asking questions, artist has a very specific setup in France. For instance, you can't be a micro-entrepreneur as an artist. Artist is separate. You are under your own name, and you're going to be paying your taxes to URSSAF and Maison des Artistes. So again, the setup is different. When you go and register, we have to pay. Don't refer to the options where it talks about micro-entrepreneur, because that's not the way it's going to work for you. And your taxes are going to be calculated in a different way. So when you have a mixture of activity like this, for instance, this week I had someone who had a non-professional JIT, then a business activity, then an artistic activity, and they declared it all together. We ended up with a mess because INPI didn't quite understand what they were doing. and they did some registration, but it doesn't reflect what she wanted. And at the end, it's just a mess. So clarified, start by registering the activity which is going to be the most important one for you, and the one that is going to be generating some income, and also the one that is going to be generating your health cover. So for instance, some of my customers, they come to France and they have a business freelancing activity, and beside that, they have some artistic income. So to me, the first question is, where does the money come from? Or what do you make? What will you do the most of the time? And if it's more freelancing and sideways artist, we will start by registering you as a freelancer. And once this is all done, then we would actually register you as an artist, and you get a second SIRET number. That's the only time you can have two SIRET numbers. And we would get your affiliation to Maison des Artistes. And I also have an accountant who specializes in artists. So whenever we have a complex situation, I put you in touch with my accountant so he can handle those specific questions. So I have Saint Michel 75 with the questions. So I'm trying to create a business as a freelance English teacher consultant. Is this a realistic way for me to make my move to France? Yes, big yes. Michelle, to me, that's a good one. Basically, if you want to freelance as English teacher and consultant, one of the first questions I would have is, have you done some of this before? Have you worked as a teacher or as a consultant? And then I would build a business plan around this, and I would apply for a profession libérale visa. But I like the fact that you have two hats. You have the English teaching plus the consultant, so it's a way to have two sources of income, which I like, because I tend to say to people, make sure you have several sources of income, several lines of activity. I'm not saying be a coach and be a tattoo artist. I'm saying, for instance, here, be a teacher, to do one-to-one teaching, and then if you're doing some consultancy to help schools, that's also a great one together, because they're kind of combined. They combine together, and they're similar skills. So to me, that's a great kind of things. And Michelle says, I have 24 years teaching experience and multiple degrees. Perfect. Yes, Michelle. So Michelle, to me, if you say English teacher, that's a good one. And consultant, for instance, consultancy, if you're working with schools, or schools you've worked in the past and they want some help with some of the activities, or to guide them working on their plans and so on, that's also great together. So when you work on your business plan, you outline your project, the different services, how you're going to find your first customers, your strategy. And you might say, okay, you're teaching English to French people, so you might, in advance, you might try to get in touch with some schools in France, or you might find some contracts on, take some hours on some of the online platforms to get started, then develop your own customers. So to me, that sounds like a nice, that sounds like an easy one. It always sounds easier when it's somebody else talking, isn't it? But to me, that sounds like a sound base to apply for a business visa. I don't know if you have a house in France, but then you build your business plan, then you do some financial projections to show how much you would make. And you also show, I like to also add a personal budget to show that you might have savings or the sources of income to show that you can afford to live in France. So Michelle says, I've been sending letters to school, but I'm not hearing responses for them as I'm getting discouraged. Yeah, it can be quite difficult. So you can look at it in two ways. So for instance, because that's going to be harder to get the French customers because you're not in France yet and you need to be able to go around, have a look whether there's some platforms where you can offer your services as a teacher and people can book you. So that would be one way, for instance, to start getting some lessons, which isn't generated so much from you. It's the platform sending you some customers. And beside that, you can start working as well on finding your own customers with different schools. But at least the fact that you are through a platform generates some customers for you. And the other question would be, for instance, when you are in your home country, I mean, if you're teaching English, or if I don't know if you're teaching another language like French, for instance, if you have some customers in your own country, you would want to try to take those over with you as well to France. So you may not have everything, you don't need to have everything signed up. But in that case, you say, okay, because I'm building it from scratch, I'm using a couple of platforms for 6 months. I'm going to be registering with this and that platform, and they can generate so much, do the connections, to get in touch with them to see how it works. And beside that, I will generate my own customer base by finding local customers. So I'm going to advertise, not advertise, but in France, flyers always work well. So I'm going to have flyers, 1,000 flyers ready, and I will drop them in libraries and bibliothèques, libraries or the bakers. I will go and see schools. I will go and see businesses or like co-working spaces where you can find some customers. So you outline your strategy. You don't need to have your customers yet. Ideally, if you have some customers from your own country, or if you can have signed a contract with some platforms that would help you generate some, that would be a plus. So I'm just checking if I have some other questions. I think that's all I wanted to say today. So Michelle says, I currently teach in a huge school district in Utah. I love all these suggestions. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so for instance, that Utah school, would they be ready? Would they be happy for you to keep working for them when you're in France? That would be perfect, because basically tell them, well, you work on your projects, they might be too early, but at some point say to them, well, actually, I'm planning to move to France. I would be more than happy to keep working with you because it was a great experience. Would you be okay to work remotely? I would be freelancing from France and invoicing you. If they want to pay in dollars, that's fine. But for instance, that kind of contract to me is a great one to include in your business plan or in your business project. You can have some customers from the US, and later on you'll have some from France, but you don't need to have them now. You're going to work on it to find them. So best of luck, Michelle, for working on your project. If you want to chat with me at some point, you can book a power hour. We can do a debrief. Basically, in the power hour, usually I handle business questions about somebody wanting to move to France. When it's a business plan, I also review and give feedback. So that can help as well. So I think that's all I wanted to cover for today. So hopefully, basically I'm going to be here Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. French time, 6 p.m. in the UK, 1 p.m. in New York, 10 a.m. in Los Angeles, and I will come on live for half an hour, 40 minutes, to talk to you about topics relating to freelancing in France. And whenever you have a question, just come on and drop them in the comments and I will answer them. Hopefully next week I will have worked out the restream through YouTube. For now it was too much of a hassle, so I've been cheating, and that's why I've been looking at you sideways on this side and not always looking at you straight. Sorry about that. Not great at tech, so that's how it's going to go. And soon I will also start doing some interviews with some guests on specific topics which I think will add you value as to see how people have made the move, how they're living or have specific skills. And I would start from March. I'm hoping to do 2 interviews live per month. So thank you for joining me today. I'm going to end the stream, and if you have some questions, don't hesitate to comment live next week. If you can't make it live, just drop me a DM on Instagram or send me a comment on YouTube, and I will cover them. I have some questions that I take as we go along. Voilà, merci beaucoup et bonne soirée ou bonne journée à tous. Au revoir, salut.